Hello everyone, happy Wednesday. This is Coach Kayla again, bringing us Lunch Club for today, and just give a brief overview of what we're gonna be talking about today. So last week we talked about why we sleep and why we need to sleep, and then this week I want to talk about what happens when we don't do a lot of sleep, which is something that many people are all too familiar with, unfortunately. Research has determined that about 66% of adolescents are regularly sleep deprived, which means that it's not that you're not getting enough sleep once or twice a week, but it's on a regular basis, which is not kind of concerning, it's very concerning. And when we say adequate sleep for adolescents, or the right amount of sleep that they recommend for adolescents and teenagers, has been determined to be about 8.5 to 9.5 hours per night, which is probably seems kind of crazy to a lot of you, because you're probably, I know I was not getting that amount of sleep when I was back in school, and definitely not on a regular basis at certain points in my life. And obviously life gets in the way. I mean, we all have school, we have other obligations to attend to, and I'm sure almost everyone has experienced a time when, for some reason or another, you didn't get enough sleep. One night you're working on like 3 hours of sleep, or worse, hopefully not, and you had to take a test, or you had to write a paper, or go to a meeting, or give a presentation to a bunch of people while you were sleep deprived. And while it might not have seemed so bad at the time, you're like, yeah, you're kind of on that, you're like, this isn't so bad, I can still function and whatnot. So it doesn't always seem so bad at the time, but our judgments are actually really impaired when we're in the sleep-deprived state. And so to demonstrate this, I want to show you this brief video that explains something called microsleeps that can occur and usually do occur when we are sleep-deprived.
Microsleeps are extremely brief moments where your brain has entered into an unconscious state. They're your body's way of forcing you to rest and are nearly impossible to resist. These mini naps result from changes in hormones like adenosine and hypocretin, which cause your brain to essentially close up shop.
To give you a sense of what microsleep feels like, focus on this image. In a moment, we're going to flash a quick frame of black, and then the picture will change slightly. See if you can spot the change. Ready? Here's the first picture again, and the changed image. Did you catch it this time? Did you notice the additional boat?
This game mimics the tiny gaps in awareness you experience from a 50 millisecond microsleep. And it clearly demonstrates why microsleep is so dangerous. This was a game, but imagine if you were behind the wheel and that boat you didn't notice was an oncoming car.
In fact, the #1 cause of high-severity crashes on the road is fatigue. A scary thought, since most Americans aren't getting nearly enough rest.
So clearly, we know, we can see how detrimental a lack of sleep can be, both to ourselves and to other people especially. But I think it's important not to dwell on the fact that, yes, lack of sleep, sleep deprivation can be fatal, it can be very harmful, but I think it's important to focus on how we can improve the sleep, not only the amount of time that we're sleeping, but the quality of sleep that we're getting. And one of the advice that I'm sure many of us have heard is to unplug right before bed. So turn off the phone, turn off the TV, turn off the computer. And the reason for this is because the blue light that is being emitted from these screens can actually mess up the production of a hormone called melatonin, which I talked about last week. But melatonin it's produced and increased in production right before you fall asleep. So it is what helps us to fall asleep and to stay asleep. And so by being on our screens right before bed, we're actually messing up the production of this hormone, which can be why we might not be falling asleep as quickly or getting lower quality of sleep. Another recommendation that I think all of us have probably heard is to avoid the caffeine, and avoid the caffeine especially right before bed. One of the interesting facts that I found was that the quarter life of caffeine is 12 hours. And so this means, for example, if you drink a cup of coffee at noon, which is, a lot of people probably do this. If you drink a cup of coffee at noon, then at midnight, which is 12 hours later, you're still going to have a quarter of that caffeine left in your brain, which is kind of crazy to think about because some people are probably drinking coffee or caffeine at 5 p.m., 8 p.m. And to think that by the time they go to bed, they're still going to have at least half of the caffeine left in their brain, and then they wonder why it's so hard for them to fall asleep. And that's because you still have all that caffeine circulating throughout your body. So it's important to limit the consumption of caffeine, and especially right before bed. Now, the last tip that I wanted to share with you that I thought was pretty cool, no pun intended, but is to keep your bedroom a cool temperature. And this is because your body actually needs to cool its internal temperature down by about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit before you're able to fall asleep. And so by sleeping in a cool room, you're helping your body to speed up this process and to help you fall asleep faster. So this is why a lot of times people find that taking a hot bath or shower right before bed can help them fall asleep, which seems counterintuitive to take a hot bath or hot shower, but when you get out of that hot shower, into just a normal room temperature room, it actually feels a lot colder than it actually is. So you're kind of tricking your body into mimicking the temperature drop that occurs right before you fall asleep. I thought that was pretty cool. So that concludes, those are some important tips that I have for you to improve your quality of sleep especially, but also just to improve the length of sleep that you're sleeping as well. So I hope that you found these helpful. I hope you found them interesting. But other than that, that's all I have for our second part of sleep this week, and I will see you for Run Club later.